අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුළුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this is Tuesday the 11th of April 2023. Indefinite. Election Commission announces the indefinite postponement of the local government polls scheduled to be held on the 25th of April. Slashed. The Limitation Commission recommends reducing local government members to 4,714. Assistance from afar. US Treasury Secretary to take steps to help Sri Lanka finalize debt treatment for Sri Lanka as soon as possible. Parliamentary Budget Office bill expected to be finalized in the first parliamentary sitting on April 25th, says President's Chief of Staff Sagar Ratnayaka.
Alliance Finance මෙතුරු රන්නයි සේවාවෙන් රන් පවුම්කට රුපියල් 1,70,000ක ඉහළ අධිකාරමක්. ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Andrew Bernard. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. In your top story for tonight, the local government elections that were scheduled to be held on the 25th of April has been postponed once again indefinitely. According to the Election Commission, new dates will be decided based on the court verdict or the announcement that funds are available, whichever comes first. This is the second time the local government election was postponed by the Election Commission. The Election Commission convened a meeting today under the patronage of its chairman Nimal Punchiheva to discuss about the local government election. Releasing a media communique, the Election Commission said that they are compelled to postpone the 2023 local government election that was scheduled to be held on the 25th of April for a second time due to a lack of funds to hold the election and reasons that are beyond the control of the Commission. The Commission said a decision on the new election date will be decided on whichever comes first, the court verdict or the announcement that funds are available. The Commission assured that they will continue to take all necessary measures as it has done thus far to hold the local government polls at the earliest possible date. Following its first postponement from the 9th of April, the Election Commission said the local government polls will be held on the 25th of April. However, the Department of Government Printing's inability to print the ballot papers on time due to a lack of funds was highlighted as a major barrier in holding the election on time. Following a meeting between the Election Commission and Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena yesterday, State Minister of Provincial Councils and Local Government Janaka Wakkamura said the local government election cannot be held as planned on the 25th of April under the present circumstances. Now, the Delimitation Commission appointed by the Prime Minister to look into the reduction of the number of members of the local government institutions have been slashed to the numbers to 4,714 from the existing 8,356 in the report containing recommendations on delimitation. The report was handed over to the Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena today. According to Chairman Mahinda Deshapriya, the decision on the validity of the nominations submitted for the local government election needs to be taken by the government following discussions with the Election Commission.
In August last year, President Ranil Wickremesinghe said he expects to reduce the number of council members of local authorities from 8,000 to 4,000 before the next local government election. He also said the executive power of the Pradeshi Sabha will be vested on a chairman-based committee instead of the same being vested with a single chairman. With that being the case, Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena in his capacity as the Minister of Public Administration, Home Affairs, Provincial Councils and Local Government appointed a 5-member National Delimitation Committee chaired by former Chairman of the Election Commission Mahinda Deshapriya in September last year to look into how number of local government members can be halved. The Commission handed over their report containing the recommendations on delimitation to Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena today. According to Chairman of the Delimitation Commission Mahinda Deshapriya, the total number of members elected to the local government bodies have been slashed to 4,714.
We have taken steps to ensure justice to everyone. However, we cannot prevent the reduction once we are ordered to do it. There were members between 8,400 and 8,800. We have reduced the number of elected representatives from 5,092 to 2,882. We reduced the number of members appointed from the list to 1,832. The total amount now is 4,714. These figures might get subjected to a change since the number of members appointed from the list is determined by the Election Commission. We were told to reduce this to around 4,000. However, we are of the view that it needs to be below 5,000.
අපි මේක 5000කට අඩු සංඛ්‍යාවකට තියාගන්න ඕන කියන මතය තමයි ගියේ.
දැන් මේ සංඛ්‍යාව අඩු කරද්දි මේ නොමිනේෂන් බාර දීලා තියෙනවනේ 8000කට වැඩි සංඛ්‍යාවක්.
නෑ අපේ අඩු කිරීමෙන් නොමිනේෂන් වලට මුකුත් වෙන්නේ නෑ.
The nominations will not get affected due to our delimitation. Once the date for the election is finalized, the government has to discuss with the Election Commission and decide whether the nominations are valid or not. If found invalid, then the government can reduce it by a parliamentary act and allow the reduced number of nominations to be entered from the list.
අඩු කළා මේ ලයිස්ට්ුවකින් ඡන්ද විසීම කැඳවනවාද කියලා.
Now, US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is being expected to push and urge for the resolution of requests made by Zambia and Ghana for the restructuring of their sovereign debts, while also concluding debt treatment for Sri Lanka this week. World Bank chief David Malpass in the meantime said yesterday that he hoped meetings this week with Chinese officials could help break the ice on badly needed debt relief for poor countries. The US Treasury stated yesterday that Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen will push this week for urgent resolution of requests by Zambia and Ghana for restructuring of their sovereign debts and moves to conclude a debt treatment for Sri Lanka. The Treasury stated that during the week, Secretary Yellen will maintain urgency for the speedy resolution of a common framework cases like Zambia and Ghana to remove debt overhangs and foster growth in developing countries. Yellen and other G7 officials have often criticized China's slow movement on specific debt treatment cases under the Group of 20 Common Framework, although they have welcomed China's recent agreement to provide financing assurances for Sri Lanka, which was not eligible under the G20 plan. The officials said they are hopeful the Global Sovereign Debt Roundtable meeting on the 12th of April would yield actual accomplishments. The Treasury went on to say that they are looking for concrete steps that will make the process operate faster and in a more transparent way, and something that debtor countries can look at and understand more clearly on how long things will take. World Bank chief David Malpass said on Monday he hoped meetings this week with Chinese officials could help break the ice on badly needed debt relief for poor countries. Now, the World Bank has assured continued support to strengthen the social safety nets and economic stabilization of Sri Lanka's delegation, who is currently in the US to participate for the World Bank IMF spring meetings. Meanwhile, Sri Lankan delegation has also expressed commitment to successfully complete the IMF program to the IMF's executive director.
During their visit to the United States to participate in the World Bank International Monetary Fund spring meetings, which commenced yesterday, Sri Lankan delegation, which includes State Minister of Finance Shahan Semasinghe, Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Weerasinghe and Treasury Secretary Mahinda Siriwardena, met with Managing Director Operations at the World Bank, Anna Bieda. During the meeting, discussions were held on Sri Lanka's reform agenda, which will support economic recovery. The World Bank Managing Director Operations has assured continued support of the global lender to strengthen the social safety nets and economic stabilization of Sri Lanka. In another meeting, the Sri Lankan delegation met with the Executive Director of the International Monetary Fund, Dr. Krishnamurthy Subramaniam, and discussions were held on Sri Lanka's ambitious reform agenda. Further, Sri Lanka's commitment to successfully complete the IMF program was also expressed by the Sri Lankan delegation during the meeting.
Now, Chief of Staff Sagar Ratnayake said today that they expect to finalize the Parliamentary Budget Office Bill in the first parliamentary session for this month, when the Parliament convenes next week. Speaking to the Colombo-based Diplomatic Corps, Ratnayake said that they also expect to enact a new public finance management law as part of the revenue administration reforms and expenditure rationalization measures that are currently underway. Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri convened a briefing on current developments in Sri Lanka for the Colombo-based Diplomatic Corps yesterday. Opening the meeting, the minister thanked the international community for the support extended to Sri Lanka towards economic recovery and briefed on the progress made in this regard. He also requested countries to review their travel advisories to reflect the stability in the country, which would further increase the tourist influx. The minister also highlighted initiatives taken by the government for reconciliation, including the convening of the all-party conference by the President in December 2022 and January 2023, and the appointment of the Cabinet Subcommittee on Reconciliation, chaired by the President. He also briefed them on the government's position on the 13th Amendment and the proposed counter-terrorism legislation. The Foreign Secretary also highlighted the government's initiatives to proactively engage with Sri Lankans overseas, including through the recently established Office of Overseas Sri Lankan Affairs. Following the briefing, members of the diplomatic corps engaged in a discussion on several pertinent issues, including investment promotion, reconciliation, good governance and anti-corruption. Further, Chief of Staff Sagar Ratnayaka briefed on the developments related to the government structural reform process in the context of the IMF, World Bank and the ADB programs.
This program is not limited purely to the fiscal reforms and economic reforms, fiscal reforms, but it also encompasses matters like the reconciliation process, which is key to a recovery for Sri Lanka and for a sustainable growth. Excise taxes were raised by 20% in January and is due to be raised a further 20% in 1st of July. We actually did anticipate this would happen, but when you go through the simulations with IMF and have to make certain revenue targets, you work on figures, you forecast these figures and try to get it as right as possible. But what happened when we increased the excise sharply, the illicit measures set in and legal purchases reduced. As a result, the anticipated or the expected revenue collection didn't take place. In fact, it went down as a percentage. At the review, certain measures will have to be reviewed and re-examined and thought out again. Tax to GDP ratio, the target is 14% by 2025. It's an ambitious target, but we feel we can achieve it. New administration reforms, as I said, taking place. Expenditure rationalization measures are also underway. Under the IMF program, also strengthening the core public financial management, what we call the PFM functions, which includes enacting a new PFM law. Restoring public debt sustainability is also on the program. It is both foreign currency debt as well as local currency debt. In addition, restoring price stability and rebuilding the external buffers, ensuring financial stability, reducing corruption vulnerabilities. We will see the anti-corruption bill being presented to Parliament next month and raising potential growth. World Bank and ADB programs, we are treating it as one structural reform program, and they compensate or they strengthen some of the measures in the IMF program as well. So the World Bank program, we have the improving of fiscal oversight and debt management, which has two measures being brought in. One is the establishment of a Parliamentary Budget Office through a Parliamentary Budget Office Act. Now this, we hope to have the Budget Office up and running by May 2023. It's a very tight target. We will come to Cabinet on the 17th of April. Then there is a mandatory time period that we have to allow for public consumption, after which it will be presented to Parliament, and then Parliament will refer it to the Public Finance Committee. They in turn have to come back to Parliament, and then Parliament ratifies the decision of the Public Finance Committee. All of which we hope to finish by the first parliamentary week of this month, starts on the 25th of April.
The Minister of Power and Energy, Kanchana Wijesekara, assures that there will be no shortage of coal to operate the Norachole power plant. Wijesekara said that 30 stocks of coal cargo are needed to operate the Norachole power plant at full capacity, as per the generation forecast by the CB for the upcoming season. He stated that while the 23rd stock of cargo is currently being unloaded, the 24th, 25th and 26th stocks have been docked at Puttalam and are currently waiting to be unloaded. Further, Wijesekara said that the 27th, 28th and 29th cargoes are due to arrive before the 1st of May, while the 30th stock of coal cargo, which is due to be nominated, is scheduled to arrive in the first week of May. And we'll be back with more news right after this short commercial break. Stay with us.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන් කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ඩීමෝ වෙතින් වැඩම ගොඩයි ගොඩම තමයි ස්වරාජ් ට්‍රැක්ටර් ඩීමෝ වෙතින්
මේ අලුත් අවුරුද්දේ හිත පිරෙන ගනුදෙනුවකට හොඳම තැන හිත ගිය තැන බැංකුව HNB.
අත්දැකීම් බහුලවෙන්ම තාක්ෂණික දැනුමින් සන්නද්ධ පිරිසකගේ සේවය නිරතුරුව. දශක 6කට වඩා වැඩි අත්දැකීම්. තාක්ෂණික නිලධාරීන් 165 දෙනෙකුගේ සේවය. ශ්‍රී ලංකා ඉන්ෂුරන්ස්.
Welcome back. Referring to the anti-terrorism bill, General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Sagara Kariyavasam, says the Minister of Justice should refrain from presenting bills to the Parliament that violates democracy of the people. Speaking at a SLPP media briefing today, Kariyavasam said that they will request the President to present a bill that will protect the public right to freedom of expression.
As a party, we do not agree with any act that violates or creates barriers to the right to freedom of expression. It appears that even the Minister of Justice who will be presenting this bill has no confidence in it. As a party, we request the President to take steps to present a bill that does not violate democracy. If not, we believe that such acts should not be presented.
එවැනි විශ්වාසයක් නැත්නම් එවැනි පනතක් ගෙන ආ යුතු නැහැ කියන එක තමයි අපේ මතය.
කාංචන විජේසේකර අමාත්‍යවරයා සඳහන් කරලා තිබුණා මේ රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ වත්මන් ජනාධිපතිතුමා තමයි මීළඟ ජනාධිපති අපේක්ෂකයාට සුදුසු කියන කාරණාව.
මොකද රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමාව
All of us in the SLPP supported Ranil Wickremesinghe to be the president. I do not find any wrong in the statement that he is suitable to be considered as the next presidential candidate. But that doesn't mean our party's next presidential candidate is Ranil Wickremesinghe. Our party has suitable candidates that can be nominated for the next presidential election. We have a leader with a vision.
එවැනි නායකයෙක් අප සතුව ඉන්නවා.
Now, opposition leader Sajid Premadasa expressed his objection to the government's plan to establish a broadcasting authority. Issuing a special statement today, Premadasa said that the government is attempting to suppress the independent media under the guise of media regulation.
නිදහස් මාධ්‍ය විකාශන අධිකාරියක් හරහා නියාමනය කිරීමේ අරමුණින් මාධ්‍ය මර්ධනයකට මේ රජය මුලපුරමින් සිටිනවා. මේ රටේ නිදහස් මාධ්‍යයට අපි පැහැදිලි ඉඩක් ලබා දෙන්නට ඒ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී ඉඩ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදය ආරක්ෂා කිරීම සඳහා අත්‍යවශ්‍යම කාරණාවක්. නිදහස් මාධ්‍යයක් නොමැති තැන රජවන්නේ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදය නොව ඒකාධිපතිත්වයයි ආඥාදායකත්වයයි. මේ විකාශන අධිකාරී පනත මාධ්‍ය නියාමනය උදෙසා නිර්මාණය කරන්නේ ඇයි? ජනතාව දැනගත යුතු තොරතුරු කරුණු කාරණා වසන් කිරීමේ වැඩසටහන. මේ දරන උත්සාහය අපි සහ මුලින්ම පරාජය කරන්නට ඕන.
The Sri Lankan shares closed higher for a second straight session today, supported by gains in financials and the industrial sector stocks. The all-share price index rose 0.95% to 9,411.69. The S&P SL20 index gained 1.52% to end at 2,769.58. Expo Lanka Holdings PLC and LOLC Finance PLC were the top gainers of the index, with each rising 3.4%. The trading volume of the all-share price index rose to 84.3 million shares from 75.3 million in the previous session. The market turnover rose to 1.67 billion Sri Lankan rupees, or $5.24 million from 1.3 billion rupees in the previous session. Now, the materials sector was the top contributor to the market turnover, while transportation sector was the second highest contributor. Foreign investors were net buyers in the equity market, purchasing stocks worth 193.5 million rupees of shares, while domestic investors offloaded stocks worth 1.51 billion rupees on a net basis. Now let's have a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. Now, global oil prices steady today as Chinese inflation data pointed to persistently weak demand, but a softer dollar and hopes the Federal Reserve might ease up on its policy tightening after a key US inflation report this week provided support.
Brent crude futures slipped by 0.2% to settle at $84 a barrel, while US West Texas Intermediate futures eased by 0.1% to $79.62 a barrel. Both benchmarks had risen nearly $1 in earlier trading. Meanwhile, data from China showed consumer inflation in March rising at its slowest pace since September 2021, suggesting demand weaknesses persist amid an uneven economic recovery, which spurred some expectations that Beijing could take steps to boost growth. Crude futures also climbed as the dollar eased on hopes that the US Federal Reserve is getting closer to ending its rate hike cycle. A weaker greenback makes oil cheaper for those holding other currencies. A US inflation report to be released on Wednesday could help investors gauge the near-term trajectory for interest rates. Oil futures have climbed more than 5% since the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and allies including Russia surprised the market last week with a new round of production cuts starting in May. On the US supply front, industry data on US crude stockpiles is due later today.
And that's all the news we have for you this evening. Join us again tomorrow for the very latest news at the very same time. Tune into our social media pages to stay updated on the very latest news. A pleasant evening and good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.